In the year 2235, humanity achieved what centuries of dreamers had envisioned: contact with an intelligent alien species. The USS Vanguard, under the command of Captain Elena Miles, emerged from a shimmering rift in hyperspace to behold the vibrant world of Seraphis. This lush, blue planet was marked by its vast, teeming forests and sprawling, cerulean oceans, a stark contrast to the increasingly urbanized landscapes back on Earth. Captain Miles, a veteran of interstellar diplomacy and combat, was chosen for her expertise and steady hand. Her crew, a diverse group of scientists, soldiers, and diplomats, prepared meticulously for this initial encounter. As they approached Seraphis, their sensors picked up the welcoming signals of the Seraphi, a humanoid species renowned across the known galaxy for their peaceful demeanor and advanced technology. The Seraphi delegation approached the landing site with a quiet grace, their bodies slender and taller than the average human, with skin that shimmered like a calm sea under moonlight. Their eyes, large and expressive, conveyed a sense of deep wisdom and curiosity. The leader of the delegation, Lyra, stepped forward with a gentle smile, her hands extended in a universal gesture of peace. "Welcome to Seraphis, travelers from Earth." Lyra spoke, her voice melodious and soothing. "We have awaited this day with much anticipation." Captain Miles stepped forward, mirroring Lyra's gesture of greeting. "Thank you for having us, Chief Lyra. We come in peace and hope to build a friendship between our worlds." The exchange was warm and promising. Lyra and her aides expressed particular interest in learning about human culture, technology, and biological aspects. It was during a detailed presentation about human biology that Lyra's fascination took a turn toward shock. "Our species reproduces once per decade, with each event celebrated as a sacred communal activity," Lyra explained. "But from your records, humans can reproduce annually and individually. How can you manage such frequent biological and social changes?" Captain Miles chuckled softly, realizing the vast differences in their species' biology and customs. "It's quite normal for us, though I can see how it sounds overwhelming to you. Our reproductive freedom is something we cherish. It allows for diverse family structures and strong population resilience." Their conversation, however, was abruptly interrupted by a distress signal from the Seraphi capital. A fleet of unknown ships had breached the planet's outer orbit. Lyra's expression darkened, her eyes reflecting the sudden fear that gripped her heart. "They are the Crocs," she said, a hint of dread in her tone. "A warlike species that consumes and conquers. We have feared their return." Without hesitation, Captain Miles offered the support of her crew. "The USS Vanguard is at your service, Lyra. We can help defend Seraphis." As preparations for defense began, an unexpected alliance was forged. The humans and Seraphi quickly coordinated their efforts, blending advanced human weaponry with Seraphi energy technologies. Each group learned from the other, their initial shock at human reproduction now overshadowed by a mutual goal: to protect the serene world of Seraphis from the impending invasion. As the Croc ships descended, casting shadows over the planet's vibrant landscapes, the combined forces took their positions. The first battle for Seraphis was about to begin, marking not just a fight for survival, but the birth of interstellar camaraderie that would echo through the cosmos for generations to come. The emerald canyons of Seraphis, known for their towering cliffs of vibrant green foliage and cascading waterfalls, had never before echoed with the sounds of war. As the Croc's fleet advanced, a misty morning enveloped the area, providing a natural cloak for the operation ahead. Captain Miles and Lyra stood together, overlooking the map of the terrain, plotting their defensive positions with precision and urgency. "This pass is the only way to the capital by land," Captain Miles pointed out, her finger tracing the winding paths between the cliffs. "If we hold them here, we can prevent them from reaching the city." Lyra nodded, her face set with determination. "Our energy weapons can be mounted on these ridges," she suggested. "The elevation provides a strategic advantage." The human soldiers, equipped with their state-of-the-art exosuits, teamed up with Seraphi warriors, who carried energy lances that glowed with a soft but deadly light. Together, they set up their positions along the ridges, blending into the natural foliage. The Seraphis' knowledge of the terrain was invaluable, guiding the placement of traps and barriers that used the environment to their advantage. As the sun rose, the Crocs began their assault. The first wave came in the form of heavy ground units, armored beasts that stomped through the canyon, crushing rocks under their massive feet. The Seraphi warriors unleashed the first volley of energy blasts, the air crackling as the beams struck the Crocs' armor, leaving scorch marks and dents. Human snipers, positioned at higher vantage points, took aim and fired, their bullets enhanced with armor-piercing capabilities. Each shot was calculated, aimed at the weak points in the Crocs' armor, bringing down several of the invaders before they could reach the main lines. The battle intensified as more Crocs troops poured into the canyon. Talon, a young Seraphi engineer, implemented a plan they had devised with the human technicians. Using a series of amplifiers, they boosted the signal of the human sonic weapons, creating a deafening sound that echoed through the canyon, disorienting the Crocs' forces. Amidst the chaos, a group of Crocs managed to flank one of the ridges, climbing the steep sides with surprising agility. The situation called for immediate action. Elena quickly organized a counterattack team, leading them herself. They engaged in close combat, the clash of energy lances and physical might. The humans' exosuits provided them with enhanced strength, allowing them to match the Crocs' brutal force. Meanwhile, Lyra channeled her command through calm and presence, rallying her people with words of encouragement and strategic commands. She directed the deployment of a specialized Seraphi weapon, a massive energy net that spread across the canyon, trapping several Crocs units and rendering them vulnerable to a concentrated attack. As the battle wore on, casualties mounted on both sides. The rugged terrain of the Emerald Canyons was littered with debris and fallen warriors. Yet, the combined forces of humans and Seraphi held the line, their resolve unbroken, their tactics adapting to every new wave of the enemy. The turning point came when a human aerial unit, called in by Captain Miles, swooped over the canyons. The small, agile fighters dropped energy bombs onto the Crocs' reinforcements, halting their advance. The explosions were precise, designed to maximize impact while minimizing damage to the canyon itself. By the time the sun set over Seraphis, the battle at the Emerald Canyons had turned in favor of the defenders. Exhausted but victorious, the human and Seraphi soldiers celebrated their hard-fought success. Captain Miles and Lyra met again on the battlefield, their expressions weary but relieved. "We have won the day," Elena said, clapping Lyra on the shoulder. Lyra smiled, her eyes reflecting the flames of the small fires burning around them. "Yes, but this is just the beginning, Captain. The Crocs will not retreat so easily." Together, they looked out over the canyons, now quiet, knowing that the war for Seraphis was far from over, but confident in the strength of their newfound alliance. Aqua City, a marvel of Seraphi engineering, floated elegantly on the crystal-clear waters of Lake Serene. Its structures gleamed under the twin suns, a network of domes and spires interconnected by flowing waterways and lush greenery. As the Crocs fleet approached, the city's tranquil beauty was overshadowed by the looming threat. Captain Miles and Lyra stood on the command deck of the USS Vanguard, orbiting just above the city. Below them, the water shimmered ominously as dark shapes moved beneath the surface, Crocs' amphibious units preparing for their assault. "We must protect the energy converters," Lyra stated, her voice tense. "They power not just Aqua City, but much of our planet's infrastructure." Elena nodded, her eyes scanning the tactical display. "We'll deploy divers and our underwater drones to intercept them. Our aerial units can provide cover from above." The first wave of the Crocs' attack was brutal. Amphibious creatures, resembling giant lizards with armored scales, launched out of the water, their jaws snapping at the air. Seraphi and human defenders quickly took positions along the city's edges, firing energy blasts and harpoons at the attackers. Underwater, the battle was equally fierce. Human divers, wearing specialized suits that allowed them to move swiftly through the water, engaged in close combat with the Crocs. The murky depths turned into a chaotic ballet of flashing weapons and swirling bodies. The Seraphis, natural swimmers with the ability to manipulate water currents, created whirlpools to trap the enemy, while human torpedoes targeted the larger Croc ships looming in the deeper water. Above the city, Captain Miles led a squadron of jetpack troopers in a daring aerial assault. They zoomed through the air, dodging plasma blasts as they approached the Croc's flagship. The jetpacks, equipped with short-range boosters, allowed for rapid movements, giving the humans an edge in mobility. As they reached the ship, they used cutting torches to breach its hull, entering the interior to engage in close-quarters combat. Back in Aqua City, Lyra coordinated the city's defenses from a central command hub. Her calm demeanor helped maintain order among the populace, ensuring that civilians were evacuated to safe zones. She also managed the deployment of energy shields, temporary barriers that absorbed or deflected incoming fire. As the battle raged, Talon, the Seraphi engineer from the previous skirmish, implemented another of his innovative defenses. He activated a series of underwater turrets that had been camouflaged along the city's lower platforms. These turrets unleashed a barrage of energy pulses, effectively thinning the ranks of the Croc swimmers. Meanwhile, in the depths, a critical moment arose when a Croc's demolitions team managed to plant explosive charges on one of the main pylons supporting the city. Detecting the threat, a human Seraphis squad executed a risky maneuver. A human diver, expert in explosive ordnance disposal, teamed up with a Seraphi mystic who used her abilities to create a protective bubble around them as they defused the bomb. The combined efforts on all fronts gradually turned the tide. The Crocs, overwhelmed by the fierce resistance and unable to gain a foothold in or around the city, began to retreat. The aerial and underwater teams pushed forward, harrying the retreating enemy, ensuring they did not regroup. As the last of the Croc's forces withdrew, Aqua City remained afloat, its energy converters intact. The citizens, peering out from their shelters, began to cheer as the defenders returned. Captain Miles and Lyra, observing the aftermath, shared a moment of relief and mutual respect. "We held them off," Elena said, a tired smile on her face. "Yes," Lyra replied, looking out over her city. "Thanks to your bravery and our unity. But this is not the end. We must prepare for what comes next." Together, they began planning for the future, aware that the battle for Aqua City was just one victory in a war that was far from over. Shadow Forest, a dense expanse on the outskirts of the Seraphi capital, held the eerie beauty of intertwined massive trees and thick underbrush, all cast in the silvery light of Seraphis's smaller moon. The Crocs had established their forward base here, under the cover of the towering canopy, making it a strategic target for a decisive strike. Captain Miles and Lyra planned a night raid, aiming to take advantage of the darkness and the natural cover provided by the forest. Human forces, equipped with night vision goggles, prepared for a stealth approach, while the Seraphi, naturally attuned to their environment, moved with an almost ghostly silence. "We'll hit them hard and fast," Elena instructed her team. "Demolitions on the armory, distractions on the perimeter. We need to keep them disoriented." Lyra coordinated the Seraphi contingent, focusing on using their unique skills to enhance the raid. Phala, a Seraphi mystic, was pivotal to the plan. Her abilities allowed her to commune with the forest wildlife, calling upon nocturnal creatures to create chaos and confusion among the Croc's ranks. As midnight approached, the coalition forces moved into position. Small units of humans and Seraphi blended into the shadows, creeping closer to the Croc's encampment. The first sign of the raid was a chorus of howls and rustling as creatures of the night descended on the Croc sentries, their attention torn away from the looming threat of the attackers. Simultaneously, human demolition experts, guided by Seraphi scouts, infiltrated the armory area. They moved with precision, planting charges that would cripple the Croc's capability to resupply. The explosives were set with synchronized timers, designed to create a series of blasts that would cascade through the enemy's storage facilities. Meanwhile, another team of humans and Seraphis executed a series of hit-and-run attacks on the outskirts of the camp. These skirmishes were not meant to inflict heavy casualties, but to further divert the enemy's attention from the real threat brewing at their core. The Crocs, caught off guard, scrambled to respond to the multiple fronts of assault. In the heart of the camp, Captain Miles led a group to engage the Crocs command unit directly. They encountered fierce resistance, as the Crocs were well prepared for ground assaults. However, the element of surprise worked in their favor. The dense fog, manipulated by Seraphis weather controllers, helped obscure their movements, allowing them to close in on the Crocs commanders. As the charges detonated, a series of bright explosions tore through the night, lighting up the forest with fiery blooms. The armory was devastated, sending shockwaves through the Crocs' lines, and the supply of munitions was effectively cut off. With their armory in ruins and their forces in disarray, the Crocs' command structure began to crumble. The human and Seraphis fighters pressed their advantage, sweeping through the camp with renewed vigor. The Crocs, realizing the futility of their position, began to retreat, their numbers too diminished to mount an effective counterattack. The night raid on Shadow Forest ended with the break of dawn, revealing the extent of the devastation inflicted on the Crocs' base. Wreckage smoldered among the trees, and the once imposing threat was reduced to scattered groups fleeing into the wilderness. As they regrouped, Captain Miles and Lyra reviewed the outcome of the operation. The success of the night raid had significantly weakened the Crocs' presence on Seraphis, giving the defenders a much-needed breather. "We've struck a critical blow," Elena said, her face illuminated by the light of the rising sun. "Yes," Lyra agreed, surveying the scene, "but we must remain vigilant. They will not forget this defeat." Together, they began planning the next steps of their campaign, aware that the war was far from over, but emboldened by their victory under the cover of night in Shadow Forest. Crystal Plateau, a vast expanse glittering with natural energy crystals that rose like monoliths from the ground, had become the latest point of contention. The Crocs, understanding the potential of these crystals to power their war machinery, mounted a massive assault. Captain Miles and Lyra knew that losing this territory could mean a significant shift in the war's momentum in favor of the invaders. In preparation for the battle, the Allies harnessed the unique properties of the crystals. Human engineers and Seraphis crystallographers collaborated intensively, creating a network of energy traps that could be activated remotely. These traps, once triggered, would harness the natural energy of the crystals to release powerful blasts at the invading forces. "We need to use the plateau's own features against them," Elena explained as they surveyed the setup. "The reflective surfaces of these crystals can amplify light and energy into powerful beams. It's like turning the entire field into a giant laser grid." Lyra nodded in agreement, her eyes scanning the horizon where dark clouds of Croc ships hovered. "Our people have tuned the crystals. They are ready." As the Crocs began their approach, the air around the plateau crackled with charged energy. The first wave of attackers was met with a volley of laser fire from ground troops who had taken up strategic positions behind the natural barriers formed by the larger crystals. Meanwhile, teams of Seraphis, using their innate energy manipulation abilities, directed the ambient energy towards the traps, setting off the first series of explosive reactions. The sky lit up with blinding flashes as beams of concentrated light sliced through the ranks of the advancing Crocs. The Crocs, however, were quick to adapt. They deployed their heavy armor units, which began firing dark energy pulses designed to disrupt the crystal's natural functions. The battle intensified as both sides poured more resources into the fray. In response, Talon, who had been instrumental in previous battles, unveiled his latest invention, a drone that could hover over the battlefield and redirect the energy flows more precisely. These drones buzzed through the air, their movements coordinated by Seraphis technologists, optimizing the crystal network's output. At the heart of the plateau, a fierce ground battle ensued. Elena, leading a squadron of exosuit-clad soldiers, engaged in close combat with the Crocs. The suits provided enhanced strength and agility, allowing the humans to meet the Crocs warriors head-on. The clash of energies and physical might created a tumultuous chaos that echoed across the plateau. Simultaneously, Lyra led a group of her best mystics to a central crystal, a massive structure known as the Heartstone. Here, they performed a ritual that amplified the plateau's energy network. The air around them shimmered with power as they channeled their collective will into the Heartstone, sending a surge of energy throughout the crystal grid. The surge was the turning point. Beams of intense light shot from crystal to crystal, creating a dazzling and deadly light show that decimated the Croc's forces. Caught in the labyrinth of lasers, the invaders suffered heavy casualties, their advance halted by the ingenious defenses. As the dust settled and the light dimmed, the battlefield was strewn with debris and the remnants of the defeated Croc's army. The victory at Crystal Plateau was not just a tactical win, but a morale booster for the Allied forces. "We have protected the heart of Seraphis," Lyra said, her voice filled with relief and pride as she and Elena surveyed the aftermath. Elena nodded, her gaze firm and resolute. "Yes, but this war is far from over. We must keep the pressure on and push them off our world completely." Together, they began planning the next phase of the campaign, ready to take the fight to the Crocs with renewed vigor, knowing that the battle for Seraphis would require more sacrifices and heroism in the days to come. The war for Seraphis reached its climax as Captain Miles and Lyra prepared for the final assault on the Croc's mothership, which loomed ominously above the planet. The alliance between humans and Seraphi had grown stronger through their shared battles, and now they faced their greatest challenge yet. Gathering their forces, they planned a daring assault that would involve both space and ground operations. The humans would lead the space assault, boarding the mothership to disable it from within, while the Seraphi would use their energy manipulation abilities to create a barrier to prevent the Crocs from launching further attacks on the planet. "Once we board the ship, we'll need to move quickly," Elena briefed her team. "Our goal is to reach the ship's core and disable it. We cannot let this threat linger over Seraphis any longer." Lyra, meanwhile, coordinated with her people to strengthen the planet's defenses. "We will ensure that no further harm comes to Seraphis. Our energy shields will hold until the mission is complete." As the battle commenced, the USS Vanguard led a fleet of human and Seraphi ships in a fierce space battle. Laser blasts and energy projectiles filled the void, creating a spectacular yet terrifying tableau against the backdrop of the cosmos. Elena's ship dodged incoming fire, weaving through debris and Croc's fighters as it made its approach to the mothership. On board the Croc's ship, Elena and her elite team encountered heavy resistance. The Crocs were formidable in close quarters, their rugged exoskeletons making them tough adversaries. However, the humans' advanced combat suits and the Seraphis' energy weapons proved equal to the task. Room by room, they fought their way towards the ship's core. Meanwhile, on Seraphis, Lyra led the ritual that amplified the planet's energy fields. The Seraphi mystics, standing at key points around the planet, channeled their collective power, creating a pulsating shield that blunted the mothership's bombardment. Inside the Croc's mothership, Elena and her team reached the core. The area was heavily guarded, but they were not alone in their fight. Kalair, a young Seraphi who had become a symbol of bravery among his people, used his unique ability to manipulate energy to create a diversion that allowed the team to breach the core room. With the core exposed, the team set charges around it. Elena gave the order, and the charges were detonated, effectively crippling the mothership. The explosion was controlled but powerful enough to shut down the ship's main systems without causing it to disintegrate, ensuring that the debris would not pose a risk to Seraphis. As the ship went dark, the Croc's forces, realizing their command center was lost, began to retreat. The Allied forces seized this moment, pushing back the invaders with renewed vigor. Soon, the Crocs were fleeing Seraphis, their ships disappearing into the depths of space. The victory was celebrated across Seraphis and among the human fleet. Lyra and Elena met on the surface of Seraphis, where celebrations were underway. The Seraphi expressed their deep gratitude to the humans, and plans were made for a future of shared knowledge and mutual defense. "We started this as strangers brought together by conflict," Lyra said to Elena as they watched the celebrations. "We ended as allies and friends, bound by courage and shared victories." Elena nodded, her eyes reflecting the joy and relief of her crew. "Today, we have not only protected a world, but also set a foundation for peace and cooperation that will last generations." The war for Seraphis was over, but the legacy of what these two species achieved through unity and understanding would resonate throughout the galaxy, a testament to their combined strength and the enduring spirit of cooperation.